Hello and welcome. Today we will be making two potato recipes using only the microwave. Sometimes when you're traveling or if you happen to live in a school dorm, you may find yourself with limited equipment to be able to cook with. So today we're going to do mashed potatoes and potato salad using similar limited equipment. First, as always, I would like to thank everyone who has subscribed and has been liking and sharing the videos. And if you have not already subscribed, subscribe to see more like this, and you may wish to hit the notification bell since it makes YouTube ever so slightly better at letting you know when videos come out. We'll get to the ingredients in just a moment, but first let's cook our potatoes. For this, you will need nothing more than a plate and a fork. We just need to poke holes into our potatoes all around to make sure they don't burst in the microwave. These holes let out the steam and aid in the cooking by allowing moisture to move in an outwards direction from the center to the outside. From this, we get an extremely fast cook time. This will be around 10 minutes for the mashed potatoes and around 9 minutes for the potato salad since you'll want those potatoes just a little bit firmer. Any microwave safe bowl or plate will work. I even used a paper plate and had no issues other than it being a bit damp and flexible from the steam bath it received. Once they finish in the microwave, you'll want to give them about 10 minutes to cool and then we'll want to peel them. A real quick note for your microwave. If your microwave does not have a turntable, since magnetrons and microwaves don't put out a very even spread of the microwaves, if you don't have a turntable, you're going to need to turn these over about halfway through, and that's just to make sure that they get done throughout the entire thing. Once the 10 minutes is up, we can easily peel our potatoes using a spoon. All you will need to do is drag the spoon gently across the potato and it will scrape the peel right off of it. The cooler your potatoes are, the more difficult this will be, so we only want to wait 10 minutes to let them get from ow hot to merely uncomfortably hot. I got distracted, mine actually ended up cooling for about 20 minutes or so they are a lot harder to peel. Also, one thing you can look out for is if you have any scars or gashes or any imperfections on the potato that are more than eyes, they tend to have a little bit of potato bonded with them, and you're just going to lose a little bit of potato that way as well. You can, if you'd like, wait for them to fully cool and just dig out the potato from the center with a spoon and then scrape the actual potato skins down with a spoon, but I found that this really only works for the mashed potatoes, so I don't really do it that way, because for the other potatoes you can't use that method at all. Now, looking at our ingredients for the mashed potatoes, we're going to need milk or cream, butter, salt, pepper, and about 1 medium potato per person. Do note the texture is very difficult to control in the mashed potatoes for anything less than 2 potatoes, so you'll probably never want to make less than 2. We start our mashed potatoes by mashing with a fork. Since I think it's a safe bet that if you only have access to a microwave, you're pretty unlikely to have a potato masher on hand, a fork's going to be perfect here. Luckily for us, this method of cooking the potatoes makes them very fluffy and easy to mash into a bit of a rustic style mashed potatoes. You just need to keep going back and forth from mashing and mixing everything together and back to mashing a few times. And once it's mostly mashed, that's when we're going to add our butter and milk. And that's when we want to get the texture we're looking for. Once it looks about like this, you're ready to add the milk and butter. In a learn from my mistakes moment, you'll want to start by adding your butter. I added the milk first, and it makes the potatoes cool enough to slow the butter melting. I'm using about 2 teaspoons here, but that probably should also have been a bit more butter, and add it first before the milk, as I said, so that you can fork cut in the parts of the butter into each area, and that's going to help it melt in a lot faster. Now, jumping back to the milk I started with, about 2 tablespoons here, and added about 1 tablespoon at the end. My partner gently reminded me that since I can't have milk, butter, or cream, that my mashed potatoes tend to be a bit on the dry side, more so than those who can have those ingredients as mashed potatoes. She tasted and pretty much doubled everything on the butter and milk, retasted and said it was much better and a lot closer to restaurant tasting mashed potatoes. So, take her advice, double all of that to 4 tablespoons of milk to start, but only 3 if you're using cream. Cream's a little bit heavier, I do know that. And about a tablespoon of butter to start. This is also the time to add the salt and pepper. I started with about 1/4 teaspoon of each, and continued mashing that in with a fork until the mixture started to get smooth. These will never be quite super smooth like they would if you had a proper sieve to push it through, but you can get them fairly close and produce a relatively smooth mashed potato this way. Once it's almost as smooth as you want it, taste it again for salt and pepper and to see if it's creamy enough for you. If it's not quite as creamy, you're going to want to probably add a little bit of butter instead of milk because that'll be a little bit different on the fat. If it is as creamy as you want it and doesn't need any more salt, hey, mashed potatoes done. So there is our microwave mashed potatoes. This is a super easy way to make mashed potatoes and it doesn't really take that much time either. You can get a pretty smooth texture with just a few minutes of work with the fork, and it tastes almost the same as one made from boiled potatoes, though the texture is a bit lighter than boiled since we let so much of the steam out. Since pretty much everything you could put on a baked potato can be thrown in here for flavor, you can actually let each person customize their own if you like at the table. For the non-dairy among us, while ours are a bit drier in texture, you can make up for that in flavor by using broth or stock in place of the milk. As for butter, I typically just use a vegan spread. Now, let's make that potato salad. For our potato salad, we will need about 2 teaspoons of pickle relish or 1 small pickle diced, 4 tablespoons mayo to start, 1 teaspoon mustard to start, 2 eggs, 2 potatoes, salt and pepper to taste, and optionally 2 teaspoons white or apple cider vinegar. So, to start on our potato salad, we'll need to be cooking our eggs. Now, since we are only using a microwave to cook our potato salad as well, we need to make sure our eggs do not explode as they would if you were to just microwave them by themselves or just in plain water. So we're going to make sure first off that our eggs are fully submerged in the water, and then we'll add our secret weapon, salt. The salt kind of acts as a pseudo resistor to the microwaves from the magnetron, and this causes the eggs to be cooked slower, which means less internal pressure building and no exploding eggs. The only disadvantage I have found was that the eggs do get harder to peel than they would if you had used a different method. I had to call in stunt hands to help because having fingernails really helps out on the peeling here, and if you have an egg poker like this one, punching a hole or two in the bigger end of the eggs will alleviate some of the peeling difficulty. This should take you around 6 to 7 minutes in the microwave to cook, depending on your microwave. My 1000-watt microwave took about 7 minutes for fully hard-boiled. 6 minutes the yolk was still a bit orange, and these were medium-sized eggs. I imagine it would even need an extra minute if I had gone with large eggs. Once the eggs are done cooking, we need to transfer them to an ice bath to cool off. The faster you can do this, the more it shocks the membrane and increases their chances of an easier to peel egg, and as you know, we are going to need all the help we can get in that department. While our eggs cool, we can start on our potatoes. We just peel them like we did for the mashed potatoes with a spoon. Again, do it while they're hot. If you miss some or don't mind the potato skins in your potato salad, you could just leave them on and let it cool to room temperature. Once you have all the pieces peeled and they are at room temperature, we want to slice them into smallish pieces. Not too small, but a little bit on the longer side. Depending on the size and shape, this could mean cutting it in quarters and slicing it from there. Or, if maybe longer and thinner, you might only need to slice it in half and then cut your additional slices down the length. Since we don't need the size to determine our cooking time, you can make any of them pretty much any shape or size you want. I find that if I make it a bit over 1/4 of an inch by 1/2 inch, they tend to be about right for normal size bites, where you can get a little bit of potato and a little bit of egg in there. If you go large, it more or less turns into bites being a big old piece of potato covered with a little bit of mayonnaise and some eggs falling off the side. Now for our eggs. You can really cut it any way you want. You can have it and make long slices for pieces closer to our potato, which is what I'll do. For the first egg, this will give us a nice texture contrast to the potatoes, and for the second egg, dicing it into smaller bits can help the yolk and mayonnaise mixture fill the gaps in between the potatoes by adding cut up egg whites, and it'll also help the yolk breaking down a little bit quicker to mix in with the mustard, mayonnaise, and form our dressing for the potato salad. This is one of the places where doing a rougher, non-consistent size can add to your dish in a pleasant way rather than detracting it from it or seeming like a mistake. Because we want the yolk, mustard, and mayo to blend into each other and fill in the gaps between the potato pieces, cutting some of them into small bits will be a welcome help there. Let's put everything together now. So the measurements I've given so far were all estimates. Normally, unless I'm in a restaurant cooking, I will just eyeball all the ingredients in a dish like potato salad. So I'm going to be adding about 1/4 teaspoon each of salt and pepper. Now in my case, I know pretty much what a 1/4 teaspoon looks like when it's in my palm, so that makes it easy to skip measurements here. This isn't a huge amount of potatoes and eggs, and if you don't have too much mayonnaise, you might have to back down the salt a little bit to just under 1/4 teaspoon, and then add more at the table if needed if you want to be safe and let people determine their own salt levels, since that is a personal sort of choice. From there, we only need to mix everything together and start to get an idea of if we needed any more mayo. In my case, yes, we did. Now, if you look at the mixture, you'll see air gaps all over the place in between the eggs and the potato. So what we're looking for is while we mix in the more mayo, the yolks will start to break down, and these air gaps will slowly go away by getting filled in with this new mayo yolk mustard mixture. So what we should be left with after we mix everything and adjust the mayo is a slightly pale and yellow color mixture between the eggs and the potato pieces. This is also where you would decide how mustardy you like it. I like mine a little bit on the mustardy side, so that will change the color and it'll go from a sort of pale yellow to a more vibrant yellow the more mustard you add. Ah, the boss has come by to inspect as we are adding our relish. So, I think she prefers the vinegar for this one. She's so cute. She just wants to know what I'm doing all the time. She is almost always in the room when I do these videos, when I record stuff, and it's not just because of the food. She literally follows me around the house. Always. So, as I mentioned, I did end up adding the vinegar as well. I just used white vinegar this time, but I do find apple cider vinegar does impart a slightly better flavor, so if you have the choice, apple cider vinegar. I had already done this off camera, but this is also the time where you want to do your final taste and go, okay, is this salty enough? Is there enough pepper? Is there anything else I would like to add? Maybe I want some paprika in there to make it a deviled egg style. This is where you'll basically add any of your final ingredients. Once you're happy with the look and taste of your potato salad, it's done, and we didn't even have to use a stove or an oven. Now obviously this is not the way to get the best results on either of these dishes, but what it loses in perfection it makes up for in ease of use and lack of needed equipment. I actually stuck to the microwave theme and even made the frankfurters in the background of the microwave. They took about 45 seconds to a minute to cook. They would have been a little better on the grill or broiler, but they were perfectly fine the way they were. I garnished both the potato salad and the mashed potatoes with a mixture of dried dill and dried parsley flakes so that I could add a little bit more flavor, and since they're dried spices, that works perfectly. With the potato salad, I also got a sprinkling of the powdered chilies we made from the chorizo episode we did a few weeks back. And that was a nice flavor contrast and taste contrast. You could do the same with paprika or cayenne or pretty much any not super hot powdered chili pepper, and it would add a nice flavor to it. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again for the next recipe. Have a great day and a great meal.